So now that I've been able to etch a circuit board, I've been kind of inspired to do some other boards. And connectors are surprisingly expensive, so I'm trying to salvage some nice small connectors. Among other things, spring comes with cleaning around here, and what that means is people throw out electronics right, left, and center. So I've picked up a bunch of goodies to open up and salvage some parts from. And so you have parts, you've got some inspiration on the internet, and you don't have to wait for a month for crap to come from China. You can start frustrating yourself trying to put things together right away. So one of these found it into the trash, and these are just much better binding posts than the ones that came with the hacker box. Easier to insulate, I think. So I'm going to pop those off there and whatever else is in there, and we'll see what we get. So this board came out of a Sony amplifier, and it's got tons of useful stuff. Now, even if a couple of these power, probably MOSFETs, are any good, they could be used for power supply, some power resistors, because basically an amplifier is just a constant current source or constant voltage source. So this could just easily be reconfigured into a linear power supply, because it just doesn't have the front end modulating the power that you're providing here. But you do want to add some stability circuitry in front of it so that it can react. It doesn't react to different loads that you place on the front end of the amplifier. So yeah, that's a good score. It's also got a couple of beefy caps for a power supply. You know what's about living in a disposable technology culture is you end up getting stuff like this in the dumpster, where I'm pretty sure there's a fairly usable TFT or LCD display, if nothing else. So after hacking into this, I'm going to pull out a bunch of things like limit switches, maybe try and retain this linear travel mechanism. Definitely retain the stepper motors and the belts. This thing here is actually an encoder, an optical encoder. So you could use it to keep this whole assembly and figure out how to hack into the control mechanisms. Shouldn't be too difficult. There's a bunch of people who have done it before to do things like print circuit boards using some sort of a magnetic conductive ink that gets deposited. Not only conductive, but solderable. And there's an amp hour podcast about how they went about, talking generally about how they went about designing something like that. But anyways, I'm going to try and keep that mechanism intact. So I think we got this out in one piece. Oh, now it's stuck. Oh, come on. So this actually has two optical encoders. This optical encoder is adjusting the position of the paper up and down, and then this optical encoder here is reporting back on the position of the head. So it now occurs to me that perhaps it would be prudent to leave this as a single assembly, because the encoder has to sort of sit there, and then it would be just, I'll just rebolt it together like that. So that is a display off of the one of them. So we've got a part number here that we can search up and get some pinouts on that ribbon connector. So this is the motor that drives the print head back and forth. The stepper motor that controls the paper rotation, or there'll be also a stepper motor in here. You can barely see it. Looks like it's almost exactly the same, probably exactly the same size for bomb cost. So this would give me the beginnings. Well, it certainly gives me a y-axis. An x-axis, I have to get some linear motion effected on this axis and perpendicular to that axis. And then what you have is a z-axis that you have to put on top of here, and then you can, do laser cutting or engraving, because this has probably got a fair amount of torque. You might be able to engrave boards on something like this, because these motors are fairly beefy, but we'll see. Maybe, I don't know. This one looks pretty easy to pop out and into another chassis or on top of a similar situation going either way. But yeah, just some ideas. So that's a batch of boards that have been stripped of useful components. I got some metals to get rid of, and then there's all kinds of paint and crap to get out of this garage to make it more friendly for doing some work on precision instruments like laser cutters and mirrors. So yeah, tomorrow's more recycling. So besides getting a big pile of connectors, which I still have to sort through, and so capacitors, a few inductors, there's a nice pile of power transistors that came out of the teardowns tonight. Some IR, some power resistors that are handy to have when you're doing things. Some nice heat sinks for TO220s. A couple 3-bridge rectifiers, some audio amplifiers, some pots and trim pots, a few inductors. Those I believe are super caps, but I'm not 100% sure. Some rotary encoders, some switching. Oh, I didn't check what those chips are, but some piles and piles of power transistors, as well as some jelly bean transistors and a 10x2 analog switcher. So a software controlled switch that you can switch analog signals with. I'll check the bandwidth. Video switcher, CMOS logic inverter, which is kind of a fun chip to have around when you're playing with logic circuits. Video switch, so there's 2 of those. I'm not sure if I'm going to do anything with them. An audio codec, a video decoder. Those I think are motor drivers. I'm not 100% sure. Those are 5-volt voltage regulators. Didn't check those. But then there's also a bunch of op amps down here, as well as a dual quad input selector, so low level audio switching. So yeah, altogether not too bad. Oh yeah, and don't forget all of the relays. Now there are 12 and 24 volt relays in there, as well as a couple of transformers for making power supplies, and just for art's sake, some VF vacuum fluorescent displays, which I suppose you could mask off if they're still working properly, but we need a driver for that. Don't know how to build one. Might be a project that I do sometime way down the road. But anyways, yeah, that is the haul of semiconductor stuff. Plus then there was the mechanicals from the 2 inkjet printers that I'll probably try and repurpose into some sort of XY scenario for doing well, I've got these motor drivers. Whoops. I've got these motor drivers that I can use to drive those stepper motors and perhaps turn it into some sort of milling tool, drilling tool. Actually a drilling tool for PCBs would be really nice. But we'll see how that goes. Anyways, time to put inventory away, and that might actually wait till tomorrow. Anyways, that's what happened tonight.